Rarely do opportunities like this present themselves. We have the chance to work with one of the forefathers of the open source movement. He needs a new PC. You guys are probably running some of his code right now. You may not know him, but you're using his code, I guarantee it. So we're gonna build him a monster workstation to get her done.
No one's gonna get that pun, but they will if they rewatch it later.
We need to put together a system for Eric S Raymond. Now, who is Eric S Raymond? Well, if you've heard of the open source movement, but not heard of Eric S Raymond, he's one of the forefathers, but he decided not to strongly attach himself to the movement so that the movement could have a life of its own and not be connected to him like other movements. As far as the code that he's worked on, well, you guys, almost all of you have his code in your pocket. It's on your screen right now. If you've got a gaming console, it's on that. He worked with, the PNG stuff, GIFs, the daemon that's on your phone that makes your GPS talk to all the other stuff on your phone. He did all of that and a lot
Go to Help About
more
on your phone and look for Eric S Raymond, because it's there, and it's there a bunch.
Yep.
On his blog, he was sort of talking about the different problems he was running into trying to do these monster version control system conversions. He was working on converting CVS to a CVS project to a Git project. And there was not enough RAM, his computer's too slow, that kind of thing. And one of his friends was like, here's $100, and then he linked to the Dilbert comic that was like, hey, here's a nickel, go buy yourself a real computer. And that sort of started to snowball on his blog. And so a lot of people were like, yeah, let's chip in. And while that was happening, they were like, well, it looks like you're going to get a new machine. A bunch of different people were weighing in on all the different options for the different machine. And because of this particular workload, it was sort of a unique situation. And it's like, well, hey, wait a minute. This is sort of a unique workload. But we've got all the hardware here in the Tech Syndicate office to actually build every different permutation that they're talking about. So we can run the tests. We don't have to conjecture about it. As much time is being spent on job owning on what ifs, let's actually build them and see what happens. And so we built a dozen machines to try the different permutations of the workload to find the perfect machine for this type of issue.
Now, normally we just swim around in all the hardware, Scrooge McDuck style, but it's nice to actually be able to put it together.
That's not what we do at all. That's what they do on other tech channels.
No. I thought that was with money. Here are the parts we decided to go with for his build. After much, speculation and conjecture, we almost went with an AMD 8-core, but he needs, single core performance and that sort of thing. So we went crazy.
More than 32 gigs of RAM and error correction, and I really, AMD was on the table, but it didn't win out in the end.
They would have been good if we were doing like lots of VMs and stuff like that. I mean, we needed to keep the price low, but you guys, everyone out there, I want to say thanks to everybody who donated. That is really, really amazing. You guys made this happen. We just put it together. I mean, it was you guys who contributed. So that really is awesome that everyone in the community
and also
got together.
Especially to John Bell. He was the first person to contribute to the fund, and he sort of snowballed the whole thing. And John Bell also helped set up the system remotely through IPMI, which is sort of crazy.
Turns out that for these logical volumes and stuff, I'm using essentially a Red Hat convention where the name of the primary volume group ends up being the host name of the machine. Eastern nonsense. We're all Eastern nonsense. Yes, he's got an English keyboard, English. We should really dork with him and give him a Dvorak keyboard or something.
All right, so here's the system that we finally ended up putting together. We started off with this large case from NZXT. It's more than he needs, but I think he's going to fill it up one of these days. It's the H630. One of the main things with this is it's super silent. So tons of options, super silent. It's a premium case all the way through. Then we went with the Asus. This is the X99-E WS motherboard. This is also another case that's going to be somewhat future-proof for him. It's got more options than he's probably going to need initially, but it can always be expanded upon. For the CPU, we decided to go with the Xeon E5 1650. The single core performance was about the same as a, I believe, 4770 or a 4970K. But the thing is, even though it's more expensive, it's a 6-core. You can do a lot more with it. And in programs that needed lots of cache, it just
Tons
destroys.
of cache. Yeah, his particular workload needs cache, and so this was the chip for him.
And for the fan, we wanted, again, to stay nice and quiet, so we went with the Noctua NHD15. This thing is really large. It'll fit just fine in this case. But the thing about this is it's whisper quiet. The first time we turned it on in Kentucky, Wendell pressed the power button, and I ran over because I thought that I'd forgotten to plug in the fans, but nope, it's just that freaking quiet. So it also stays nice and cool. It's about as cool as most closed-loop water cooling units. For the RAM, we needed some ECC RAM, so we decided to go with Crucial's 32GB kit. And the idea here is we went with 4 8GB DIMMs And
that is registered error correcting.
Yes, it is definitely ECC RAM. And the nice thing about this is he's going to be able to expand in the future. So, because we have 4 extra slots, so you can expand up to 64 if he gets another kit of this when prices drop next year.
Yeah. One of the workloads we were running used 20 gigabytes of RAM right off the bat. So it's like, oh, 8 gigs is enough. No, not if you're doing the kind of things that he's doing.
Next up, we decided to go with the Plextor M6E. This is a 512 gigabyte M2 PCI Express. Yeah, it's decently pricey compared to an SSD, but look at the read and write speed. 770 on the read, 625 on the write, and it's tiny. Plugs right into the PCI Express bus. Can't argue with that.
Nice long warranty.
Yes, indeed, it does have a very, what is it, 5-year warranty? Yeah.
Yeah, we want this thing to last forever.
Next up for the hard drive, we decided to go with HGST, and that's because in Windows, many systems that he's been building for various clients, he's found that these to be some of the most reliable. We decided to go with a 3 terabyte variety, and this is the NAS hard drive from HGST. We also decided to put a couple things in the 5 1/4 inch bays. This is going to be very handy. It's an Intermax EMK5. It's got a 3 1/2 inch and a 2 1/2 inch slot, plus 2 extra USB, 3 headers there, and that will plug in the motherboard. That motherboard does have 2 USB 3 headers on there, so you got one for the case and one for this. Next up, the power supply. You never want to cheap out on a power supply, and we went for the good stuff. Also going to be quiet and cool. This is the NZXT Hail 90 version 2. This is the 1000 watt version, and it's actually got more than 1000 watts going through it. There's almost 1000 on the 12 volt rail alone. But the thing that's nice about this drive, or this power supply, is that it doesn't even really make any noise until it gets to a certain load, and with his system it's really not even going to get there, so it's going to be almost completely silent. It's modular, can't argue with that. All right, so tell us what you're going to be using your new computer for.
Repository surgery.
What does that mean?
Well, version control systems. These are pieces of software that you use to maintain history of software projects so that you can keep track of your changes, associate comments with them, always revert to a clean state if you get something broken. I often get asked to move histories of projects, sometimes with 20, 25 years of commits by hundreds of people, from older version control systems to newer ones. And this is a difficult job and can take a long time. For one that I'm working on, which is the conversion of the NetBSD operating system repository, this is essentially a graph theory problem, 18 gigabytes wide. It's huge. It's monster node and link computation.
Sounds like it would destroy your RAM. Huh?
Yes.
What other sorts of general things are you going to be using it for?
Well, one of the things I worked on is I'm the maintainer of a piece of software called GPSD, which you've probably never heard of, but you use it every day if you have an Android phone. It's what sits underneath Google Maps, monitoring the actual GPS on your machine and making location information available to applications. And that software is everywhere. It's on every Android phone in the world. It's in every tank and armored fighting vehicle in the U.S. military. It's in robot submarines. I love the robot submarines. That's cool.
So a little bit of your code is in everyone's pocket and robot submarines.
And robot submarines. Yeah, that's cool.
Awesome. Now you've chosen i3 for your environment. Tell us a little bit about that and why you chose i3.
i3 is a tiling window manager. It looks really regressive when you look at it because it looks like just several terminal windows.
Yeah, it's not used to what people are used to. A bar with tasks.
That's right. There's no taskbar. There's no icons. There's no borders. It's all. What I like about it is it's all working space. There's no waste. The way it works is, you start it up. You have one big window. You start another application. The window divides in half. Start another application. Whatever window you have focused, that divides in half. And you can move windows around and so forth. But it's very spare and clean and minimal, and I like that.
I mean, how do you feel about all the arguing that's going on with Linux and all the people who just whine and complain all day about different versions and yell at people for using Ubuntu and yell at people for using Red Hat and yell at people for using whatever?
Some people like being in religious wars way too much. I don't.
I mean, what did you accomplish with your old machine? I mean, what were some of the just give me 2 or 3 bullet points of things that you accomplished? This was a Core 2 Duo.
Yeah,
that you were using before.
Well, I maintained GPSD for years using that.
Right.
And I wrote RepoSurgeon, which is a major repository surgery tool. And up until yesterday, I was routinely doing several project releases a week from that machine.
Now they'll be a little bit faster.
Yes.
And for those of you in the cheap seats, that he's able to do as much as he is with his E6600, you guys have no excuse. You guys should be contributing to open source immediately.
He's someone who's been getting stuff done on a Core 2 Duo. Can you imagine what he's going to be able to do with this? I want you guys to stay tuned for some more videos with Eric. I found him to be an incredibly inspiring individual. I mean, I immediately got home and started like cracking open some books, trying to play with some code, you know, and just do something more than create videos. I mean, we do more than create videos already, but I mean, there's always some way that you could be using your time to better yourself and to better the world. And just that inspiration that we got while we were there, it's still with me, and I hope it stays with me. So just stay tuned for some more videos with ESR. I think you guys are going to love them. All right, it's pretty sappy.
I think it's good.
Probably a good place to cut, though.